Thank you for being part of this month's, the month of July webinar. As usual, the Institute of Information Management has put together a very interesting webinar for us today. And in the course of this webinar, we're going to have a powerful tag team of professionals that will be doing justice to this month's theme. And before then, as usual, we would like to introduce us all to this very wonderful professional institute called the Institute of Information Management. By way of introduction, I am Ambassador Dr. Oyiwole Yedoku, President and Chairman of the Institute of Information Management. I'm also the Country Chief Data Officer Ambassador for Nigeria, talking about the MIT CDYQ program. And I'm also the President, Chairman of the Records and Information Management Awareness Foundation, RIMA Foundation. The RIMA Foundation is a non-profit, non-governmental organization that is out to promote access to data and information in both public and private organizations across the globe. The RIMA Foundation was established in 2004 to help raise awareness on data management across the continent of Africa, and thereafter to other clients. In 2010, the Records and Information Management Awareness Foundation, the RIMA Foundation, founded the Institute of Information Management. This was done in order to help create a platform where professionals can actually have the opportunity to learn best practices in the field of data and information management. The Institute of Information Management is also a platform that provides opportunity for professionals also to access various certification programs in the field of data and information management. So without taking too much of our time, we would like to use this opportunity to invite us all to be part of the Institute of Information Management for an opportunity for us to network with our peers across the globe, and also opportunity to learn best practices in the field of data and information management. Like I mentioned earlier on, to do justice to this interesting topic, we have two gentlemen which we are going to introduce shortly. I want to call on our program officer, Izuchukwu Ejiofor, to officially introduce the two facilitators to us as we move into the presentation proper. Thank you once again for your time. We look forward to a fruitful presentation.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to very quickly introduce our facilitators for today. We have very special people who will be facilitating this program. We have Robert Luton. Robert Luton is the Vice President of Sandhill Consultants, North America. He is also the Massachusetts Institute of Technology CDUIQ Symposium Co-Director, and is also Deputy Director for the International Society of Chief Data Officers and he's also a member of the editorial board of the CDO magazine. He is a leader at the Sandhill Consultants and is responsible for creating an organization that has delivered technology, services, products, and training in the areas of enterprise and data governance, in the area of business glossary, data cataloging, data architecture, and data modeling. And also co-facilitating with him in our gathering today will be Jeffrey Giles. Jeffrey Giles is the principal architect at Sandhill Consultants, and he's also a principal architect and is certified data management professional, CDNP, and he has been working on data or with data for about 15 years, and he has written articles on data modeling and data governance for the data administration newsletter, and he has also provided guidance on data modeling for technical publications. He's also been a guest lecturer on business architecture, as well as a speaker in various tech conferences. So in our midst today, we have two very, very capable facilitators who will be delivering goods on today's webinar. Thank you very much. Welcome to our meeting once again.
Thank you. Wally, do you want me to go ahead and start and introduce and share my slides?
You have the floor, please.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, first of all, on behalf of the Institute of Information Management, we would like to thank you for inviting Jeff and myself to be here. This is not the first time I've had the pleasure of addressing the Institute of Information Management. I did it last year with MIT Dr. Rich Wine. But this here session, Wally, again, thank you indeed for inviting us to talk about business glossary and data governance practice. And actually, we're going to start in the reverse order, because without a data governance practice, you really don't have much of you may not be able to properly implement a business glossary. So for everyone that's out there, you might want to just go on mute just in case it avoids any background noise there. And with that, I will go ahead and begin. This presentation, July 14th, 2022, is scheduled to go an hour, but we may extend it a little bit longer, depending upon your questions and depending upon the technology that we're going to be showing. So let me go ahead and start with that. I'm going to put my screen on, hide my screen because you don't need to see me. I'm just going to talk about the important thing, which is the technology and the slides. So first of all, I don't know if it's possible, it was last minute, but we were wondering if it's possible that we can launch a poll. So I'm not sure if that's possible, but if not, we can certainly use the chat feature in Zoom to indicate how many folks are planning on launching a data governance program. Do we have an update that you can use in a chat feature? Are people thinking about it in the near future? Any plans? Yes, no? And you can go ahead and use the chat feature if you want on Zoom. And you don't need to be shy. Go ahead. Yes, no. We'll have a look at that. So 3.
Hello,
yes.
hello, Rob. Sorry to
Yeah.
come in there. Probably you can proceed with the presentation. We'll launch the poll in the course of the presentation, probably before Jeff comes online.
Excellent, excellent. So and then thank you indeed. So some already have some already are looking at in the near future. We just wanted to get a launch pad from that. So so here we're going to talk about building a business glossary and data governance practice, and we're going to introduce a framework for sustainable data governance, which may be interesting. We're going to show you a peek behind the scenes on what you may have to do. Introduce some key tools that we believe are important and some best practices. Now, when it's interesting, when we looked at data governance, when we started in this journey many years ago, we had to kind of map out data governance. And in this particular view, You can see that we've got different colors to indicate different sections. There's plans that we have to have for governance work. We've got to have people assigned to it. We've got the processes, we've got the inputs and outputs. And really depend upon the organization, right? Some people would need some of this, some they wouldn't. But it really showed us that, you know, that data governance could be a complex interaction of features, functions, process, and technology. However, when we started to strip everything away, we found that you could develop an approach that would be somewhat seamless. This may look like a busy diagram, but I'm just going to go through from top to bottom. So I'm not going to read all the details, but really you want some kind of value proposition. So these are things that you're going to have to create. So whether it's from the business, whether you're from the business side or whether you're from the IT side, the business side may have some critical situation that they're trying to resolve, either improve the trust in the data or maybe get regulatory issues defined or want to avoid some kind of disaster, or it may be from the IT side where they're looking to do a data warehouse, a master data reference project, or some kind of application rationalization. Then you would break it down into, so those are the drivers, you then break it down into the value proposition: cost avoidance, effective and efficiency, sales optimization, and risk management. Now, there's obviously a communication plan. Data governance is without anything a communication vehicle first and foremost. You will have to create vision, goals, objectives, and roadmap, and of course, measure and monitor. But it's the things in the middle that really you need to have a good approach on. For example, starting from left to right, from a high level point of view, right, you need to have some kind of maturity assessment. You need to do some kind of gap analysis. Where are you today? Where do you want to go? What's the gap? Develop your scope and strategy, then develop a technical environment, develop your communication plan, formalize your charter, conduct your governance processes, and operationalize and monitor. And this is the high level roadmap. Now, when we peel the onion a little bit more, we found that this would require or necessitate a whole plethora or a whole load of standards and policies. You need to define roles and accountabilities. You need to create checklists, and you need to create your dashboard and scorecards. Now, you can make this happen. And one of the things is that we're going to show you is that we've actually helped organizations get a jump start on this. Now, when we actually go a little bit further, we look at it in two halves. There's the technology side. And a lot of organizations start from the technology side. They start with, hey, I need a business glossary tool. I need a data cataloging tool. I need a data modeling tool. And these are great, and you do need these, but you also need to understand that there needs to be an oversight of this data. And this oversight is your data governance capability, your program, right? These are the standards, roles, and procedures and metrics that you're going to have to develop or adopt, and that there is an agreed upon definition of these standards that then get addressed in the data management technology. So when we boil it down, there's two halves of this coin that you need to look at. Now, again, a lot of us have seen this where a lot of people start off with a data governance tool, right? And then they realize, well, where's all my content? Where's my policies? Where's my infrastructure? Where's my governance management? Where's my roadmap? And they realize that perhaps they haven't really looked at the appropriate governed data lifecycle. And so they quickly come into, well, let's quickly get a solution in there that allows us to create our enterprise data governance program that will then sit on top of the data governance tools. And we'll see this in Business Glossary, and you'll see an example of this at the end of my section. Now, one of the things that we decided to do was we created a sample reference architecture that I'm going to go through. And this sample reference architecture starts from frameworks that have been in existence for many years. So you may be familiar with the data management body of knowledge. You may also be familiar with the CMMI's data management maturity model and EDM's Council DCAM data capability assessment model frameworks. These are 3 of the major frameworks, and they provide a lot of guidance. So the first question I'd like to pose to you is if you have not heard of these 3 frameworks, we would certainly recommend that you go out, you Google them, you look at them. We are specialists in them. If you want more information, please come back to us. We'd be delighted to tell you a little bit more about each one of these frameworks. These frameworks provide the what in data management. This is what you need to do. However, we realized quite quickly that they didn't provide the how. Now, when it comes to the whole DMM framework, there's the data quality, data operations, data governance, data modeling. We're going to focus on this particular webcast on the data governance side. But I don't want to ignore the fact that there needs to be some kind of foundational layer of data modeling. So data modeling is a foundation for data governance. You need a strong best practices, you need strong data modeling standards, you need modeling processes, and you need some kind of quality validation. In addition, you also, for your data governance oversight, which we talked about, you need some kind of policy management, some kind of data governance standards, you need best practices and governance. Now, it just so happens that we have spent the last 5-6 years in building, even longer with the Data Modeling Center of Excellence, this framework, this content for organizations to get a jump start on. I'm going to show you that. Then this maps into the technology. You can't get away without leveraging technology, whether that technology is as simple as a spreadsheet or whether that technology is more sophisticated, like a business glossary application that you buy from one of the vendors out there, be that Alation, Calibra, Informatic, or whatever. And also, you know, we do recognize that in order to produce standardized metadata, you do need data modeling tools such as Irwin, SAP, Idera, Accolade, and things like that. Now, again, we know this because we're specialized in this. This is what we actually bring to the market. So I wanted to produce a sample reference architecture that you could come back to and say, okay, do we have this? I'm going to show you more about how we can actually help an organization even jumpstart this process. So as we look at a data governance framework, right, there are certain things that you need to look at. You need to kind of understand that this is what you're going to create. So if you don't have a data governance program today, then you're going to want to create your data governance knowledge base. This knowledge base is the organization's best practice. It's the organization's data governance structure. It has the capability to provide announcements. It has some kind of data governance council documents. It has got the training contents. It's got the links. All of this knowledge base, this interacts with the data governance authority that you'd create, the development of the policies and standards which are implemented, the assignment of responsibility and accountability, known formally as a RACI matrix. You want to be able to govern the data, and you want to communicate this governance to the organization. All of this is wrapped into a very nice workflow and data governance operation management system. Now, we realize that this data governance function then has to interact with the key data management function within the organization. You may have data quality cleansing, metadata management, master data management, data access, data security, data privacy, data integration, data modeling, data architecture, data operations, content management, and data lake, data warehouse. All of these receive their direction, their oversight, their policy and guidelines from your data governance functions, right? And then obviously you have your analytic functions of the reports, dashboards, KPI, self-service, machine learning, AI models, and NPL search. So this is how we view the world. And one of the things that we do is we understand that many organizations may be in either the beginning stages or maybe some kind of stage where they're looking to automate and enhance whatever they have of their existing data governance content. And we're here to tell you that there's a very nice, simple approach to doing this that can create a centralized, easy to maintain, visible approach for taking any and all manual data governance policies, any manual procedures, reporting, or roles and responsibilities that the organization may have in Excel, in Word, in SharePoint, things like that. And then we can actually centralize that into some kind of data governance management system, a centralized knowledge base where it can automatically map the roles and accountability of the organization with built-in metrics, and it's easy to maintain and includes some kind of data literacy for the organization. So there is a path forward, a very quick and easy path forward. However, we would also recommend that during your approach that you would seek to make sure that you've identified the business value outcomes, one or more. And sorry, my screen here, I was just doing some last minute screen manipulation. So if I just maybe see if I can screen this, I won't do it just there. But pardon the extension. We'll fix it out in the final area. But basically, you want to make sure that your business data governance, your data governance program aligns to one or more of the following business value outcomes. Either you're looking to enhance data literacy, you're looking to reduce customer risk, you're looking to leverage value from data, you're looking to increase customer confidence in data, you're looking to protect IP knowledge, and you're looking to ensure data protection and improved analytics for AI machine learning. So you want to make sure that you've got these capabilities out there. Now, before I jump into the business glossary, I want to just go and show you a quick example of a online cloud-based data governance framework which has the content that you would need. Now, in data governance, we understand, again, we're consultants in this space. We've got data governance authority. We've got to plan, implement, and deploy. And if I were to go into just an example for data governance authority, you'll see that we have created what needs to be done for a data governance authority. You need a business case, you need an executive charter, you need a scope of mission, you need accountability, and you need architecture. Now, I can go through all of this, but one of the things we did in the structure of implementing a data governance practice, we created a project plan, and this project plan has everything that you need to create the first implementation of your data governance program. Now, we mentioned just in the previous page that if you started with data governance authority, and really we start from left to right, top to bottom, and each one of these is a sub-menu. If I go into data governance authority, you will see that I've got the business case, executive charter, mission, scope, and accountability. In our project plan, you can actually see that we've actually got the executive charter. And now in the executive charter, we expand this down into the various aspects of metrics, responsibility, the life cycle, and things like that. So we've defined everything in the project plan, and we put everything into the framework, the content that you can adopt to Jumpstart. And again, if I were to go into the policy and standards, which we mentioned, and I'm going to jump over to another screen. We know that there's certain fundamental policies that you need in setting up and establishing a data governance policy program. And what we have done is we have provided all those policies into the framework that we have. So basically, you want to look at, the value data policy, the independent stewardship policy, business term policy, validation and verification policy. And again, if I wanted to go in and have a look at the data retention policy, one of the things we have done is we've created a very nice, simple structure for the organization to understand what's the purpose, what's the description, and who is responsible. And again, we go through all of that as a jumpstart to allow the organization to quickly implement a data governance policy. Now, I'm going to switch over to Jeff in just a minute, but one of the things we want to do is we want to look at the business glossary. Now, again, before you use the technology of business glossary, you've actually got to implement a business glossary review. You want to look at the terms. You want to tell the business glossary program what the definitions are, how you're going to do the definitions, and we provide all this as a jump start for the organization. So we've got everything here. And again, you can follow this whole approach of a framework to implementing your data governance practice. So with that, I'm going to actually stop my screen and I'm going to transfer over to Jeff, my colleague, who is going to be talking about the actual business glossary. So if you want to, Jeff, take this away, and talk about the business glossary and how we look at the business glossary, what an organization needs to do, and what you need to be aware of, that would be great.
Thank you, Robert. Just a quick check, just to make sure, is my screen visible?
Yes, we are seeing your
Right.
screen, although you're not full screen mode, you're in slide mode.
That's right. So we'll be going into that. I just wanted to double check because sometimes you have these technical glitches and you don't realize you have them until halfway through your presentation. So just want to make sure we're on track here. Let me just go into the slideshow part of things. All right, so we're going to talk about building a business glossary. And I have entitled this Metadata to Meaning, because what we're basically going to talk about is the meaning side of the business. But before we do that, there is a poll and it'll run at some point. But just curiously, do you currently have a business glossary? So it's interesting to know how many people are actually using one or don't have one or are thinking about one. Now let's move on. First thing, of course, is let's define what a business glossary is. So we're all on the same page. So a business glossary is just a means of sharing controlled vocabulary. And by controlled, we mean that there's some governance over these words and meanings within our business glossary. I also include this idea of data literacy because it's a very popular term these days. And it's defined as the ability to read, understand, create, and communicate data as information. So one of the things that the business glossary helps us with is the understanding and communication part of things. So why would I want to build a business glossary in the first place? So some of the things that the glossary helps you with is to maximize the understanding of all that data you have, minimize the misuse of data, improve the alignment of business with technology assets, maximize the accuracy of searches, find relevant and timely information. So if we break this down, basically what we're trying to do is make sure that the data that's supposed to stay within the organization stays within the organization, that the meaning of the information aligns with the technology that we have, and the ability to search and find information that we want to investigate. Now, a lot of people think that a business glossary is simply a software solution. And I first want to tell you that it is not. The most important thing that you need to understand about a business glossary is that it's a people-driven thing, not a software-driven thing. So business glossary software will manage all of your business terms, but it doesn't create any of them for you, right? So if you went out and bought a business glossary software, there's nothing in it. You still have to do the work to put that information in. Business glossary content is developed by people who understand the meaning of something, right? This is why you have subject matter experts in your organizations who understand what that term means or what it has meant over time sometimes. So understanding meaning is fundamental to creating software solutions. So once you create a business glossary, it's not like it's a one-time, you should just use it as a business glossary. It actually helps in a lot of other areas like machine learning. So with machine learning, you actually feed it samples of things and then it learns over time. Well, if you have quality and consistency around your business glossary, your machine learning results will be much better. Same thing with predictive analytics. The key word here is predictive. I need to have some standard way of understanding what that term means so that when we do predictions, they're consistent. And of course, data monetization helps with, if you understand the data, you can sell the data. People can make money from the data. And of course, data operations, where we need to understand things from the technology side and how it moves through transformations and ends up in some data warehouse or lake or analytics tool. So it helps in all of those areas. Now, people get confused. What exactly is a data dictionary? And is that the same thing as a business glossary? So in my diagram here, if you look at it, the word order is in the middle of this diagram. And it's broken into two parts: data dictionary to the left, business glossary to the right. So if I'm interested in this concept of order, what does it mean for me technically? That's the data dictionary side. So I'm going to want to know, well, where is information about order stored? Is it in an ERP, a CRM, a database? What's its technical specification? Even though it's called order, is it shortened? Is there some abbreviated technical name? What's its data type, its length, its precision? Is it part of a code set? Is that code set part of some government standard? So the data dictionary is really the technical meaning behind the information. The business glossary, on the other hand, is purely a business-focused idea. So when we think about an order, we want to know, well, what are the business policies that surround order? What is their strategy? Is there any goals around this? What are the business rules? They could be regulatory. There could be, as Robert was saying, data governance rules around certain things. What types are there? There's order, but there's a sales order, there's a purchase order. Are there other kinds of orders? And then what terms might be related to an order, such as a contract or an agreement? Because an order is really just an agreement that says we're going to buy something from somebody or perform some service for somebody. So there is a distinctly different component between your data dictionary and your business glossary. So related glossary elements. So here are some other things that are also part indirectly to building your business glossary. And one of those is the business policy, the business rule, business processes, as well as your business terms. Now I have this concept here up here called loose coupling. And it's really a developer term, but what it means is this, is that if you link things loosely, then if one of these items changes, it doesn't really affect all the others. So as we'll see later on, what people generally do with a business term is they try to embed in it all of this information. And what ends up happening is it makes the business term less stable, less durable. But I want to call these out now because I'll talk about them in just a little bit. Now, one of the key questions I'm always asked is, should we just build one business glossary, like a big business glossary for everything? Or should we have many smaller glossaries? And the answer really is, it depends, as always. So if you are an organization and you really just do one thing, let's say sell insurance or sell products, or a governmental agency and you just do one thing, you could probably get away with just one glossary. Sometimes the industries or business units or areas within the government are so completely different that they use completely different words and meaning, and trying to coalesce these things together becomes really difficult. So in that instance, it might be beneficial to have several, let's say, independent glossaries, but maybe have one person who's in charge of knowing information from each one of those glossaries, so you could at least look across them. So one or many depends. So the first thing we're going to talk about is business term naming, which really comes down to is, what do you call it? All right, this is an area where people don't put a lot of effort into this. They simply just name something what they think it should be called. But there's actually a process for naming things within your business glossary. So business term names should follow a standard structure. There's no formal business term naming standard, but I like to borrow from logical and conceptual data modeling, which applies what's called the ISO standard IEC 1179. You can look it up, but essentially we're talking about metadata naming. And that's really what a business term is. It's a piece of metadata. And it comes in three parts: a prime word, a qualifying word, and a classifying word. They're not really designed to be like read as if it were poetry. It's simply a structure around how we name something so that we can find it easily. So let's look at an example of that. So if we look at prime word, it describes the major topic or subject area. So the example in this would be product, employee. A qualifying word just adds additional meaning to that prime word. So product quantity gives me more information than just product. Employee mailing address gives me more information than simply employee. And then a classifying word. Now, sometimes this is optional. In data modeling, we always use classifying words, but in the business glossary, you may or may not use them. But product quantity number tells me what kind of information or what kind of value I'm going to find in there. Employee mailing address text will tell me what kind of information is in there, at least what form I expect to find it in. Now, another one that comes up is abbreviations and acronyms. So I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I'm always asked, should abbreviations and acronyms be used in a business glossary? And again, it depends. So if we look at an abbreviation, it's a shortened form for a longer word. Now, most of the time, you'll find this in databases and tables for physical storage, but it's simply because databases can only hold so many characters for the name of something, like only 30. What ends up happening is they shorten the name of something. So purchase order just gets shortened to something like PO, right? Now that's usually on the technical side, as I mentioned, but there is a lot of business and technical jargon in the workplace. And it's used quite frequently, especially in, let's say, certain business units. So there's technical jargon in the medical field. There's technical jargon and business jargon in insurance. There's other kinds of jargon in, let's say, government. So an example is a non-disclosure agreement is usually referred to as NDA. So the question becomes, do I put in the business glossary NDA? Or do I put in non-disclosure agreement? Or would it be useful to have non-disclosure agreement and NDA in the same business glossary? There's no standard for this, but I tend to lean towards the include an abbreviation in certain business and technical jargon, not for database names, but sometimes with the jargon, because not everybody understands or knows, especially if you're a new hire to a new business and they start throwing about things like, hey, Jeff, do you have the NDA? Because we need that tomorrow. You say, sure, hang on, I'll just go look up NDA and see if I can find out what that means. So these are the things you want to put in your, or at least think about putting in your business glossary. Now, acronyms are another thing. You'll run into acronyms all the time, especially in government. They love to use acronyms to shorten certain words or phrases. It's easier to spell it out as a word than it is to actually write it out. So an example here, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Did anybody know that that's what scuba actually means, even though you use scuba for scuba diving all the time? Another one, adjustable rate mortgage, referred to as an ARM. So these are the things you have to think about when you're building your business glossary. Will you use these? How will you implement them? So one of the things I like to think about when I talk about abbreviating words is if I'm going to abbreviate something, I usually try to have a standard as well. Usually it's a kind of a root stemming concept where if the term word is reference, then I'll find the shortened word is REFER. And then shorten that to REF. And then if it's reference, I'll put C, referencing, I'll put a G, I'll put an ED, I'll put an S if it's plural, and able if it's referenceable. So you can come up with your own standards, but it's helpful if you're going to get into abbreviating things, especially if you're talking about metadata for things like databases as well, to have some standard way that you abbreviate things. Now we're going to talk about the big, let's call them elephants in the room, which is the synonyms and homonyms problem that you run into. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a short video for you. This is a commercial that ran in the United States. And what I'd like you to pay attention to is the words used in the context in which they're used. I'm going to jack up my volume here just so you can hear it through my speaker. So hang with me.
Oh, you're back. Is this my car? State Farm knows that for every one of those moments, this is ridiculous. There's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening.
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart. Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up.
Ah!
That's why State Farm is there.
What a day.
With car insurance for when things go wrong. What a day. But also here with car loans to help life go right. State Farm.
Now, one of the things that I hope you took away from that was that the words were all the same, but what was different was the context. And that's what we're talking about here when we start to build out these glossaries. You can have names that are the same, but the meanings can be completely different based on the context of that. Oop, I'm going to go to the next one. So first thing, let's talk about synonyms, which is really just a word or group of words that means exactly or nearly the same thing as another group of words. So for an example, product might be referred to as goods or merchandise or wares. Now they're all still the same idea, but maybe there is a difference between what a product is and merchandise is. So what you really have to do is you have to make sure that you understand the words that we're using. Do they mean the same thing or do they mean different things in different contexts? So how do synonyms occur in business? Usually things like mergers and acquisitions. So if a big bank buys a smaller bank, they may have words that are different, but they mean the same thing. I remember doing work for a railroad in the United States, which was BNSF, which was Burlington Northern merged with the Santa Fe Railroad. And they all had the different words, but they meant the same thing. So you run into some problems when you try to talk across these different areas. So what are some standards or strategies we're going to use to sort of manage the synonyms? So what you generally want to do is to reduce the number of synonyms if you can. And one way to do that is to say, okay, at some point in time, 30 days from now, a year from now, however long you want, eventually retire the term. What you're going to end up with is something called the preferred term. So that is the one term that should be the agreed upon. And the key word here is agreed upon standard with the same definition. Because the more of these synonyms you have rolling around, the greater the chance of confusion. Tagging is another way. You could put all the synonyms as well as the preferred term into your glossary, but whenever somebody clicks on a synonym, it takes you right to the preferred term. So they are always taken to the preferred term, which is useful because it helps them learn what the preferred term is. Associated term. So associate synonyms to the preferred term. So tagging is one way to do it. Another way is to use associations. And you'll find these in technology like Business Glossary software. You can associate things. Homonym. Now these are harder to deal with. Homonym is a word or words having the same spelling, but they have different meaning, right? Homonyms occur in business just like they occur in synonyms. Mergers and acquisitions, differences between industries, differences in technology systems, ERP versus CRM. You'll find out it's kind of funny that when you start to buy these big ERP and CRM systems, whatever the software developer decided to call that thing is what the business ends up calling it. It's kind of funny, but it is true that you end up doing the techno speak simply because the software says that's what that is. But we have to deal with homonyms. So what should we do with them? try to rename the term to be more specific. So in this example here, I have the word premium. So in insurance industry, you could say, is it an insurance premium or is it a sales premium? Because they mean different things in different contexts, right? The other way is to enumerate all the potential definitions. So if the first thing you tried to do was to rename the term and you get some political pushback, like, no, that's our term, we've used that forever and they can't use it, we're going to use ours, then what you do is the next best thing is to enumerate it. So you say, okay, what this means in insurance is an amount to be paid for an insurance policy. What this means in sales or commerce is a sum added to the ordinary price or charge. So sort of an upcharge. In finance, it's an amount by which the price of a stock or a share exceeds its issue price, its value, the asset it represents. Now, in these three instances, the word premium means something completely different. So going back to my little commercial I just showed you, what we say is they're using the same words, but the context in which they're using those words is not the same. So homonyms need to be managed for your business glossary as well. Now, relating terms, I like to call this section finding things, because oftentimes you go to the business glossary looking for something, but you're not exactly sure what you're looking for, or not exactly sure what it's called. So this is where relating terms comes in handy. In order to find things within a glossary, it's useful to have an ontology and a taxonomy, but mostly a taxonomy. You don't have to have an ontology, but the idea is it's a classification system or structure to allow people to navigate around and find terms. So taxonomies are hierarchical. Ontologies relate subject areas. So if you look at the little diagram over here on the right side, we can see that a party participates in an agreement to purchase a product or a service. Okay, that agreement, it has got various hierarchies in it within orders, quotes, requests, agreements. Then agreements have a relationship with some work effort. So once we agree to either provide a service, somebody has to do some work, and then there may be material that needs to be provided, or logistics, how we actually deliver the service to a customer or a constituency. And then finally, some sort of payment may be required. Either we're paying somebody or somebody's paying us. And then we have to, of course, record that. So this is just a simple structure that sort of gives me an idea of how my organization is put together. So we're not talking about strict formal structure. Like if you look up the word taxonomy and ontology, you'll find a whole bunch of super scientific stuff. We're not really talking about that here. We're just talking about a structure by which somebody could navigate through some tree and find information we're talking about. So it does provide some context to help you find information quickly. So classifications can be done a number of different ways. You can do it based on a business subject area, a business unit, a business function, a capability, an organization within government. There's lots of different ways that you can set this up. But the key point here is finding, navigating through something to find something. So now let's talk about generalized versus specialized terms, right? So when we think about this, the term name must match its definition precision. So if we think about how we might structure certain things, and this is just an example, a generalized term, that's sort of a high level term. So we can say from our little picture here that the high level term here is an agreement. That is, parties get together and they agree on something. What they agree on might be an order. So an order is an agreement between parties to purchase something. But if we're talking about purchasing something, is that we're selling them something or we're buying something from them? So you can specialize these terms, you can have more detailed specialization of terms. And so this hierarchy is what's known as the taxonomy part of things. So having an understanding of how this works also aids in building your business glossary. So if we look at this really in a general sense, an agreement is a commitment. An order is also a commitment, but it's a commitment to buy or sell something. A sales order is a kind of order. A purchase order is a kind of order. So these are like types. So you can have this sort of hierarchy of understanding to look for something. So how does this help you when trying to find something? You might say, well, I'm looking for something that has to do with buying products. And you could probably find an agreement and you could say, oh, okay, that's a little high. You can drill down and say, okay, well, there's an order. Okay, an order I need to drill down even further. And then it's a kind of order, okay, that lets us buy products. So again, it helps you navigate. It also helps you understand how all the parts fit together. Definitions. Okay, this is the probably key most important part of your business glossary because everybody's going to go there for meaning, and meaning is captured in the definitions. So what we've talked about up to this point is structure. How do we structure our business glossary? Now we're going to talk about what does it mean. So business term, word or phrase that describes the concept. So employee, product, those are concepts. Definition is the statement of the exact meaning of something. So when we start looking at this, we say that just like we can structure how we name something, we can also structure how we define something. So we talked about this idea of a generalized term. So we know that that's sort of a high level of abstraction with not a lot of details. And there are certain important characteristics that make something unique or different from other things. And then the function is really, what is it supposed to do in a business context? So if we look at the little formula down at the bottom, or what I would call a template, you can start with a term object, such as purchase order. That is a category of order, that is a kind of order. And it might have an attribute, like let's say purchase orders have terms, right? So you could say net 30 days or 60 days. That's unique to this concept of a purchase order. And then what is it used for? It's used for us to buy something from somebody else. So there is a structure to how you define things. So some of the guidelines that you want to be cognizant of when you're building your definitions is you don't want to start using things like when or where something is used. You don't want to talk about who's supposed to use it. You don't want to talk about how you edit or how the process works. You don't want to talk about format. You don't want to talk about where is this stuff stored, what hardware or software systems use the related data. Because you remember at the beginning, I told you about the related things. So this is where you begin to separate out if you're going to define something. Don't include business policies in your definitions. Don't include business rules in your definitions. Don't include process in your definitions. You just want to use the word that has limited meaning within a specific context. Why is this important? Because if you put policy, rule, and process in your definition, and any one of those things changes, that means your definition is no longer useful because it doesn't really reflect what is true, right? So there are things that will change. You extract the things that will change and you keep the concrete thing, which is the meaning of a word in a specific context. So let's take a look at this simple exercise here. Now, what I have here is a definition. Now, this definition came off of the internet, and it is the definition of a sales order. So I didn't write this. I just took it off the internet. Now, one of the things that people generally do when building a business glossary is they'll say, oh, we need a definition for sales order. Oh, well, let's just go out to the web. We'll search for one and we'll just copy it and paste it in our glossary. And then we got one. So then we can cross that off the list. We now have a definition. But once you start reading through some of these things, what you realize is this paragraph of sentences is actually includes additional information that you don't need. So you've got ideas about whether something is an internal document, whether the sales order should record the customer's originating purchase order. Is there an internal audit control on completeness? Is there a sales order number applied? Does the customer's PO and their originating document trigger the creation of a sales order? Now, this is additional information that's in here, but it really doesn't tell us what a sales order is. So when you break these things down, in there, you've got a policy. Sales orders must follow an internal audit control. You've got rules. Sales orders must record a customer's purchase order. A sequential sales order must be used. Whenever you come across the word must, may, or should, those usually refer to rules. But what we're left with is a sales order is, which doesn't really tell us too much about what a sales order is. There's too much stuff in here. So what you really have to do is you start to look at it this way. We take all this stuff, we take out what we don't need, and we look at sort of a structured kind of definition, which should, if you get it down correctly, be roughly 1, maybe 2 sentences, but shouldn't be a long paragraph that somebody has to read because they probably won't read it. So if we look at this, a sales order is a kind of order. That's true. It has a specified set of terms and conditions. So those are attributes. That's definitely true. And what it's used for is selling goods or services. So if I'm trying to do analytics, if I'm trying to understand something on a report, that single sentence probably tells me more than if I read through all that other stuff, which really doesn't belong in the glossary term. So now we're talking about the best practices for governing your glossary. So you know how to structure it. You understand basically how you want to create concise, clear definitions of stuff without having extra stuff in there that you don't need. Now we're going to talk about how do you govern this once it's operational. So every time somebody submits a new term to be evaluated for the business glossary, you have to look at it with some quality control metrics. So first thing you're going to ask yourself is there any cryptic jargon in there? Did they use the word PO or did they use purchase order? You know, you want to make sure that the jargon is out of it. Is it concise? Is it one sentence or a long paragraph? You try to get it down to a single sentence if possible. Contextual, is it specific to the context in which it's used, right? Premium, is premium part of an insurance idea or is it part of a sales idea? I need to make sure that the context is correct. Consistent, term names and definitions should match. So if the term name is insurance premium, but the definition is really all about a sales premium, then we know that, yeah, the name of it and the definition of it do not match. They're not the same thing. So those are some of the things that you're going to look at when you start to govern additions or creations to your business glossary. So business term management. Business terms should be reviewed before you add them to the glossary. So usually you'll have sort of a, let's call it an owner of a certain, let's say, data domain. So services, products, people, whatever it is, that's the one that wants to be the reviewer of the business terms. So it's kind of like stewardship, if you will. Changes to the business terms must be managed. If you just keep putting stuff in your glossary, but nobody's actually checking it for correctness, completeness, conciseness, what ends up happening is people say, well, I can't trust that thing. It's so out of date. And they put all this gibberish in here and there's policies and processes and it's hard to work with. I don't use it. So all that effort that goes into building your business glossary, nobody uses it, is really a time waster. So the business steward is responsible for conformance to the standard. So if there's a standard, if you decide to employ some standard, they're going to check to make sure that it conforms to the standard, like the names, let's say. Business owner is ultimately accountable for the fitness of use. So does the definition match the name? That's probably what a business owner would check out. Business steward would say, are you using the ISO 11779 standard to name this thing? You know, so the business steward says, yeah, it conforms to the standard. Business owner says, yeah, but the definition isn't fit for use. So look at a simple workflow example. A lot of data cataloging tools have these workflows in there, but essentially a business term is submitted. Somebody's going to review that in accordance with the standards, usually going to be some steward. And then you have the decision. Is it good? Does it meet the standard? Yes or no? If it is yes, then you publish it to the business glossary. And then once it's published, then it's broadcast to everybody else. Some software actually will send out a notification that says a new business term has been added to the glossary. You might want to check it out. If no, well, then we can just send it back to the submitter with some notes about how they can make the definition better, and then they can send it back through the cycle again. So when we say that the term should be managed, we're saying there must be some kind of workflow that says quality control is being applied to this thing, because if there's no governance, also known as quality control, it's just going to be a mess over time. So if you're in the market to look for, let's say, a business glossary, what should you be looking for from a software perspective? It needs to have the ability to associate things together so that you can deal with the synonyms and homonyms, tags, those kinds of things are very useful. Structure, some ability to create a structure. It might not have an ontology. An ontology is kind of an advanced concept, but certainly some sort of taxonomy or hierarchy in which to structure the information within your glossary. Tagging is very useful for synonyms and searches for things. Now, when it comes to searching, there's lots of different ways to do search, but searches are getting pretty good with these tools. There's obviously an exact name match, but there's also now sounds like match. There's a definition text search, so you can actually search through the entire definition. So search capabilities are pretty good because you're going to have people who aren't let's say experts. There might be Jeff Giles, who just got hired yesterday, who needs to submit a report and isn't really sure what the meaning of half the stuff on the report is. So I would use it to figure it out. Import-export ability. This is key because the business glossary itself is not like an island unto itself. So you have to have the ability to get some stuff in and push some stuff out, especially when you're starting from scratch, brand new. There's no terms when you buy these software products. So you want to have the ability to either take an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file or some mechanism to bring stuff into your glossary. But the other thing is, other people will be looking at the glossary and say, you know, can we use some of that stuff? I think I need some of this stuff for my AI tool. My AI tool wants to start learning things, and I want some of that. Oh, okay, we'll need to export that out as an Excel spreadsheet so that you can use it for that. So these are some of the things that you can use or have in your list of requirements for a product like that. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to...
Hey, Jeff, just before you go, because I noticed that in slides with poll number 3, in fact, the team have actually got all the polls working. So I was wondering if, while we've got the majority of folks still on the call, we could actually run the 3 polls. So in order. So if our host would like to run the first poll, which I believe was basically, you know, how many plans? Yes. So do you have a business glossary currently? So if you can just go ahead and let us know if you have one. all 3 polls actually. So I think there's just do you have a business glossary? And the second one is, if you have business glossary, what software are you currently using, and how many folks are launching a data governance program? So hopefully you guys will be able to see that and give us that update. So thanks for that. So Jeff, those polls have been running in the background. So you were going ahead. We are just in the last. We extended over another couple of minutes. If you want to, I think there's good feedback. People are staying. Did you want to show some software that can?
Yeah, let me just see if I can sort of wrap this up.
Sure.
At first, when I was looking at this poll, I thought, wow, there aren't that many people that use Excel, but Excel is actually one of the most popular business glossary starter software. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into just show you sort of how a lot of this stuff will wrap up here. So let me end this show real quick and then go into some software. So this product is called the Irwin Data Intelligence, but everything that I'm going to show you here is conceptually the same across a lot of these business glossary tools. So so they'll be the same ideas here. So let me sign in. And what happens is it places me inside of what's called the Business Glossary Manager. Now, one of the things, there's different areas here. You can manage your business terms, your policies, some compliance reports, business rules. This is why I say, don't embed policies and rules and various other things in your definitions, because there's other places to put it that are more relevant. The other thing that I want to point out here is this idea that there's structure. So if you look at my catalog here, which is my general business terms, I've got roughly 389 here. If I expand this, what you'll see is that I've got it broken down into these different areas. Like I showed you in my diagram here, this begins to sort of build out that taxonomy concept. So when I will talk about, let's say, parties and roles, I can expand parties and roles. And within parties and roles, I can see that there are certain person roles. And then within person roles, I can have another sub area. I can even include things like, GDPR and some of these other rules and regulation type stuff in here if I need some definition for these things. Now, if I look at this business policies concept, there would be business policies that are around data or data access and some of these things. Now, some of these things here are just pure data perspective, but there might be some that are particular to your business glossary as well. Compliance reports. Now, one of the things that happens when you build a business glossary is you want to know, is it operating okay? How many business terms do we have? How many business terms are waiting to be approved? These are sort of metrics that will tell us details about how well our business glossary is performing. This thing is looking quite a bit. So let me just switch over here to this dashboard, which will give us a better and quick view of the same information. So what we look at here is total business terms you have are 389, but how many are actually approved? And by certain characteristics or categories, what's the creation trend, up or down? Who is the data steward? Who is administering this? All of this stuff has to do with your data governance concept. So when we're looking for stuff, it's always useful for us to have a search capability. So within any of your glossary tools, you should have the ability to search for something. So if I'm searching for something like address, I should be able to type in ADDR, and it should find anything that matches ADDR. Now, when I look at this thing here, if I want to know, okay, address, all right, who's responsible for address? So then I can click a button and it says, okay, well, Tara Murphy is the steward for this particular term. So quickly I can say, okay, well, if I have a problem with this, Tara's the person I want to talk to. Now, if I look at this button here, it says, well, how many associations do you have with these different things? So we can see that address is related to a contact postal address, an electronic address, a party postal address, a postal address boundaries. So when we talk about relating terms and context, we want to be able to understand that, yeah, there's lots of different definitions out here, and it all depends on what we mean when we say address. Because if you think I mean physical postal address that's going to a destination on land, but really I'm talking about somebody's electronic address. I want to know what your email address is. So we need to understand that all these things sort of relate to one another. But let's take a look at the big picture. The big picture is where I want to see all of the interrelationships that have to do with address. So if we look here, we have address in the middle. Now, everything to the left of this is the data dictionary side of the house, which is basically, what did you name it? Where did you put it? Where can I find it? That kind of stuff. On the right side here, this is all the business stuff, policies around data, policies around governance, how the general business terms are fitting. What are the data standards? So if I expand all this stuff so you can see the big picture, what we can see here is that address has got a data security policy that's associated with it. It also has a data usage and a data access policy that's associated with this. It's also tagged for United States and location. So if somebody says, I think I'm looking for someone who's going to type in United States, see what comes up. It should map to something like address, location the same way. Now, on our taxonomy of our business terms, we can see that we've got general business terms. We've got logistics as well as people and organizations. So when we look at logistics, we're really talking about, oh, there could be a ship to customer address. There could also be a ship to purchase address. So there are different concepts. And a facility where we can find that. Electronic address, postal address, party postal address. What is the data standard for address? ISO 11779 metadata standard for naming, but here in the United States, we also have a standard for how you define what an address is from a metadata perspective. So all of this stuff comes together to help us find information, understand information, and things like that. The last thing I'll just point out here with this concept is that there is this idea that when we look at this stuff, that we want to see some kind of, let's say, workflow or something like that. So if I look at my workflow log, we know that the business term should be managed. So somebody creates one or modifies one, that draft is submitted for review. It becomes reviewed, and then I can send it back to draft, or I can approve it and then publish it. A lot of the glossary software has a mechanism to do this. I can also see from the perspective of governance who the users are in each phase and what role do they play in each phase of this particular workflow. And so now I'm just going to pop back into my slide deck here and conclude by saying there's some good resources out there if you want to build your own business glossary. One that I recommend here by Ron Ross is called Business Knowledge Blueprints. It's a lot of good information in there. There was one written by Bill Inman and Lowell Fryman, who are very good, and it's called Business Metadata. This one is also in my library. Steve Hoberman, who's a very good data modeler, also wrote a good book. You'll find that you can get a lot of good definitions and associations from your data models. And then another book here that I read called The Accidental Taxonomist, which is really all about organizing and structuring information so that you can find it. So what I'm going to do at this point is turn it back over to Robert,
So Jeff, you can just put up your question mark screen.
Okay.
We really do appreciate the Institute of Information Management for allowing us to go through what we believe is how to establish a data governance practice and a business glossary. I've tried to answer as many questions in the chat that have come up. We do appreciate your evening and giving us the evening, an hour and 15 minutes of your time. Jeff, there was one question from AJ. He says, is tagging the same as a hyperlink? And I think it's slightly different, is it not? When you go
It's
to
slightly
tagging?
different. A hyperlink is where you can go from, let's say, a definition into, well, actually, I'll show you really quickly because it's right here. So if I were to go into my business policies, for instance, and I looked at this business policy around data access, what I have embedded into the definition is a hyperlink, which would be different from a tag because a tag is sort of just a general idea. But if I click a hyperlink, it's going to take me somewhere. So in this instance, it takes me out to Compass that Robert just talked about, so I can get some details about how I might set up and manage my business glossary. But tagging is different from hyperlinking. You use hyperlinking a lot when you want to go to the authoritative source. So if you define something and it's outside of your business, like GDPR, you might have a hyperlink that goes out to the EU's page on GDPR, and then that would be a good hyperlink reference.
Again, thank you, Jeff. We are watching the chat. We know we've gone over 17 minutes. If there's any other questions that come up now or come up afterwards, please let the folks at the Institute of Information Management know. We'd be happy to get back in touch with you. We hope that this is one of several presentations that we can do with the folks and provide more training, awareness, and a skill set upgrades to the folks there in Nigeria and the surrounding countries. So, Wally, we'll pass it back to you if that's okay, or the host of the team.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob and Jeff. In fact, it's been a wonderful session, and I believe quite a number of attendees, will have been able, to learn a lot from these great presentations. In fact, it's an eye-opener for professionals to see the various disciplines and opportunities that exist in the field of data and information management. And, talking about taxonomy, talking about retention, and so on and so forth, these are some of the issues a good number of organizations as we speak are faced with. A good number of organizations do go into data governance programs, with poor knowledge about taxonomies and some other very important elements. And I think, tonight, it's been a wonderful time, an opportunity for us all to see the opportunities in this all-important industry. The data and information management industry is huge. There are lots of opportunities we can tap into it. And in fact, in Africa, we've got opportunities to create lots and lots of jobs, opportunities for professionals to take advantage of. I believe,
absolutely,
with all of these sessions, we'll be able to bring Africa to that level. And we're actually going to be competitive and also be able to take advantage of the various opportunities being presented by our industry. But before you go, Rob and Jeff, Rob, I want you to say something about the 2022 CGIQ conference coming up. I think it's also a good opportunity for people to know about it, to know about what is actually happening around the globe. So you have the floor.
So well, thank you very much indeed. If I can quickly go to the website, I'll show you. So next week, MIT is hosting a on-site and virtual symposium. So if I share my screen, you'll be able to see exactly, the symposium. Now, virtual registration is actually free. So if you go into here, the 2021, it's I'll post this in the chat box. Wally, I think that you've actually got the code that there's an actual complimentary code that people can go and register. We'll try and get this sent out to everyone that's registered here. But basically, this is the 16th annual MIT CDIQ Symposium, and it's 3 days. I am sorry, but it is on Eastern Standard Time. There are 3 days of presentations. So we actually kick off the keynote. So we have the US Department of State and Department of Defense talking about how their role on the federal government is transforming in the age of analytics. And then we've got seven concurrent sessions. 5 of them are on site, 2 of them are virtual, but all 7, including the keynote, are streamed virtually. Not only that, but because we record what we stream virtually, it's available for playback either a couple of hours later or the next day. So if you register for the symposium, right, you can watch the next day's key events that you want to click into on your own time at your own day. It may just be a day late or whatever. And we've got professionals from MIT, we've got professionals from partners, we've got professionals from the commercial, private sector, all giving their updates on what they're looking to help with analytics, with the environment, social, and government activities, with what's happening on, because we've created several tracks. I think there's the ESG track, there's the executive decisions, the CDO strategy track, the innovative academic track, what's happening in academic, actionable insights that translate to data, leadership track, CDO toolkit, and then the virtual global issues. And all of these tracks, we've tried to align top-notch 1-hour presentations, and we've asked the speaker, just like we have today, to be a professor for the day and talk about what's actually happening on this. So if you haven't already registered for the upcoming CDOIQ, the MIT CDOIQ virtual session, which is free, and Wally, you can send out the link to all the people registered here for the information on how to actually register and how to use the free promo code. We impress upon you that this is definitely something you want to take advantage of. So Wally, does that kind of cover that for you?
Thank you very much, Rob. Like I told you, we still have a number of delegates to register for free on the platform. So I hope you help to escalate our complaints to the technical.
Well, yeah, I'll make sure that, did you send an email? Because I was prepping for this webcast. Are you still running into an issue getting folks registered?
We opened the link for us, for another session. This is something that personally, in fact, if you ask me, I would have wanted it to continue, because a session like this, I know what it will cost for an organization to put a training of this nature together. And our members, I believe they've learned a lot today. And for those that are still interested in being part of the symposium, we'll be willing and ready, to ensure that they are registered for the symposium. For those that are unable to join physically this year, I can assure you that next year, a good number of IIM members are going to be there present. So thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you, Rob. We appreciate you.
That's no problem. Yeah, Wally, just an FYI, while in the background, I'll send an email to the organizers at MIT Symposium and ask them to make sure that they keep your registration link open and send you an updated link so you can send it out, okay?
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure, and thank you for the invite, and thank you very much indeed for everyone's time in the evening. We do appreciate it. We know it is late in the evening there.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. So thank you, everyone.
Wonderful presentations.
Yeah,
oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Please, I want to know, I want to clarify something from the institution.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Does this institution run degree programs?
No, but we have a university that runs the degree program.
So maybe you can also help to advertise the university. We would like to run such a program. I'm so interested in what we have learned this evening, and there is need for us to learn and to get its highest level of degrees to present ourselves in the labor market very well.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I will definitely get those information across to you.
It's all right.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Before we call it a day, I want to use this opportunity to recognize the presence of some of our executive council members. For the council members here present, kindly unmute and introduce yourself. Then while we work on activating our cameras, because the next on our agenda is the group photograph. For those of us that wouldn't mind to activate our cameras while the executive council members are doing the introduction, we want to ask you that you activate your cameras. Any executive council member here present, kindly unmute and introduce yourself. So we'll wait for others to activate their cameras so that we can take the group photograph. Executive Council here present, kindly unmute and introduce yourself. Okay, we're moving on with the group photograph. Let's activate our cameras while we do that. Camera, please. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Taking. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. Next webinar is going to be on the 18th of August. We look forward to having you all in attendance. For those that have requested for the slides, we've actually sent the email address for you to make your requisition, and also for the members here present, you also have the opportunity to request for your certificate of attendance. It's free of charge for members of the institute. The email address remains training@iim-africa.org. We look forward to having you on board once again in August when we bring another interesting webinar for the month. And if you have any questions concerning today's presentation, please do not hesitate to contact us. You can equally send your questions to training@iim-africa.org. We look forward to welcoming those that are yet to join the Institute. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to be part of us and join the IIM family. The IIM induction for the month of August is approaching, and we have a 30% discount for interested individuals that want to join the Institute. I want to use this opportunity to inform us that this is a good opportunity and a good time for you to join the Institute, because very soon we are going to become chartered. And the moment you become chartered, things will definitely change. And those that are even inactive, coming back to the Institute will mean you have to go through the new process. So it's a golden opportunity that we all have now to be part of this before the charter status is being conferred on us finally by the government. So thank you everyone once again. Wishing us all wonderful afternoon for those of us that are in the States and Canada, and a wonderful night rest to all of us here in Nigeria and other parts of Africa. Thank you as we look forward to hosting you once again in August.
See you soon. Thanks, Wally. You'll get an email from the people at MIT. I've already been on to them, so you should get an updated link for you to send out. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, guys. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for all your help.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. God bless all.
Good night.
Good night. Congratulations.
Bye. Good night, sir.
Congrats.
Bye.
Bye.